Hello everyone. Today I'm going to present my research work which I was supposed to present at experimental biology meeting. So the title of this presentation is cytochrome B5 reductase 3 can be approached as a contemporary therapeutic target to restrain hypertension. The abstract ID is L8801. So coming to the brief introduction of CVDs, CVDs are a group of disorders which are related to the circulatory system, and according to WHO report, the CVDs accounts for 50% of the non-communicable diseases, and they have become the leading cause of death, and which accounts for 17.3 million deaths per annum, and the number is yet expected to grow by 24 million about the year 2030. And if you see the distribution of hypertension among all CVDs, then it is 7.1%, and the hypertensive heart failure is about 6.2%. So both of these, hypertension and hypertensive heart failure, contribute to significant amount of all CVDs. So we cannot forget about the contribution of our famous people who lost their life because of cardiovascular disease, because being our Bollywood celebrities, being our leaders, or being our Hollywood heroes, and the miserable journey still continues. Uh, so this slide shows the cause, target organs, antihypertensive strategies, and classification of the hypertension. So if you talk about the cause of hypertension, then there are several causes like lifestyle changes, dietary factors, stress and obesity, and high sodium intake, high alcohol intake, which although I have not mentioned here. So the target organs include mainly the target organs are kidneys, heart, brain, liver, eyes. In fact, every organ of the body is affected by hypertension. And if you talk about the antihypertensive strategies which are currently in use to treat hypertension, are these: diuretics, angiotensin 2 convert 2 blockers, and beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, alpha blockers. And these are the major drugs which are used into treatment of the hypertension. But the problem with the long term use of these drugs is mainly the renal failure. In long term use, they cause the failure of the kidney. That's why there is a need of alternative targets to be discovered against hypertension. So we targeted here the cytochrome B5 reductase 3, which is a fantastic enzyme. It is basically a flavoprotein, and its molecular weight is 32.4 kilodalton, and it is having 301 amino acid into its structure. And there are two isoforms of this enzyme. One is membrane bound, and another is soluble. In humans, the gene coding for cytochrome B5 reductase 3 is located at 22nd chromosome, and these are the synonyms of this enzyme. There are two domains. One is FAD binding domain, and another is NADH binding domain. There is a linker region between these two domains. So, what makes this enzyme fantastic? Because this enzyme actually controls the flow of nitric oxide, which is basically a vasodilator, and it controls the flow of nitric oxide into vasculature. And how does it control the nitric oxide? It actually converts the ferric form of alpha globin to ferrous form of the alpha globin. This is the ferrous form, and this is the ferric form. And ferric form of the alpha globin allows the nitric oxide, as I told you, that it is basically a vasodilator, and it allows the nitric oxide to diffuse across the myoendothelial junction, which is the anatomical location where endothelial cell and the smooth muscle cells are joined to each other. It allows the nitric oxide to diffuse across this myoendothelial junction, and the nitric oxide, once diffuses to which ultimately goes to the smooth muscle cells, and here it leads to the vasodilation. And this enzyme converts the ferric form of the alpha globin to ferrous form, which does not allow the nitric oxide to diffuse across this myoendothelial junction. So we need to inhibit this enzyme. That's why this enzyme takes the use of body's own blood pressure lowering mechanism, which makes this enzyme a fantastic target to be explored into the treatment of hypertension and related CVDs. So we purify this enzyme from recombinant sources, and we characterize this enzyme spectroscopically using UV visible spectroscopy, fluorescence spectroscopy, and CD spectroscopy. And we found that in UV visible spectroscopy, this enzyme was found to be a flavoprotein because these signature humps we obtained into the UV visible spectroscopy. The signature humps are showing that the enzyme is a flavoprotein. Functionally, the enzyme is fully active because it was able to convert potassium pericyanide to potassium ferrocyanide, which are the analogs of alpha globin in ferric and ferrous state respectively. This enzyme is able to capture the electron from NADH, which is the electron donor here, and this is converted to NAD plus. So this is a coupled reaction where the rate of NADH conversion can be measured at 340 nanometer, and we found that this enzyme is fully functional. As you can see here, that this blue line is showing that the enzyme is active, and it is able to convert potassium ferricyanide into potassium ferrocyanide. So next we use the fluorescence spectroscopy. We found that the enzyme is fully purified into fully folded state, because we did not observe any hyper or hyperchromic shift into the fluorescence assays. Here we excited the protein at 292 nanometer, which is the tryptophan specific fluorescence, and we got emission maxima at 333 nanometer, which is showing that the enzyme is having fully folded native conformation. We also used an FAD as an extra fluorophore, which is the prosthetic group of this enzyme. We found that this enzyme is having oxidized state of the cofactor, which is the FAD, and because we excited this enzyme as 450 nanometer, and we got the emission maxima at 525 nanometer, we found that the enzyme is having oxidized state of this cofactor. Next, we also check the conformation of this enzyme using CD spectroscopy. In CD spectroscopy, we found that the enzyme is having alpha helical content into its structure, because we got some signature dips at 208 nanometer and 222 nanometer, which is showing that the enzyme is having alpha helical content into majority of its portion. Once confirmed that the enzyme is fully folded, it is having functional activity, and it is having fully active conformation, which is alpha helical in nature, and then we move further for the screening of the inhibitor against this enzyme. For screening of the inhibitor, we first did virtual screening. We selected some of the databases of small molecules against the crystal structure of this enzyme. We got some hits from there, and we did the primary screening of these inhibitors, which were initially obtained as a result of in silico screening. So in primary screening, these inhibitors were taken against the uh, in vitro potassium ferricyanide assay. Here this straight line are showing that this activity of enzyme has been inhibited by the use of several of inhibitors obtained into in silico results, and this is a green line which is showing that the activity is as such in absence of inhibitor. Then taken together, some of the inhibitors were screened into secondary screening in order to determine the IC50 value of these inhibitors. I have shown the data here of UDSC1 and UDSC2. Both of these compounds were showing the IC50 values into micromolar ranges. The IC50 of UDSC1 and UDSC2 were found to be about 16 and 7 micromolars, and you can see the legend here. Here IC50 was calculated into secondary screening. Then we check the heme reduction potential of these inhibitors. We in heme reduction potential assay, we use the alpha globin itself, which is the more physiologically relevant substrate instead of potassium ferricyanide. Here these are the signature humps which are obtained into the heme reduction assay, and the enzyme was fully able to convert the ferric form of the alpha globin to ferrous form. These signature humps are getting increased. You can see this legend here. This yellow line is uppermost, which is showing that the activity of enzyme is fine, and it is able to convert ferric form of the alpha globin to ferrous form with the increase into the time. So we screen UDSC1 and UDSC2 into heme reduction assay. We found that UDSC2 was able to reduce the activity of enzyme, but UDSC1 was not that much efficient in curbing the activity into heme reduction assay. Next, we also check the kinetic parameters like Km and Vmax, although it is not very clear from here because these lines are very thick, but you can read the legend here. Both of these compounds, UDSC1 and UDSC2, were found to be uncompetitive inhibitors of the enzyme activity. Because there was a decrease into Km and Vmax, both of the kinetic parameter in presence of UDSC1 and UDSC2. Next, we also check the binding parameters of UDSC1 and UDSC2 in tryptophan specific fluorescence. When we titrated a variable range of inhibitors, say 1 micromolar to 100 micromolar, we got a static decrease into the fluorescent intensities in both in presence of UDSC1 and UDSC2, and it demonstrates that in presence of UDSC1 and UDSC2, both of these compounds are able to mask the tryptophan specific fluorescence, and this assay was done at 292 nanometers, and the emission was observed at 333 3 nanometer, and static quenching was observed, which means that the tryptophan residues are getting covered, and the active site is getting blocked by the use of these inhibitors. So on the basis of static quenching of the fluorescent intensity, we also calculated the binding parameters like Kd and the number of binding sites, like which is also called as stoichiometry constants. We found that the binding constant were into favorable ranges into micromolars, and the stoichiometry constant, which is n number of binding site, was found to be 1:1, which means that one molecule of the drug is able to bind with one molecule of the drug. You can see the legend here. You will find the Kd values and the number of binding site here. And then we move further to check the binding parameters using SPR. We also find here the favorable binding parameters which were in agreement with the fluorescence results. These are the sensogram which were obtained while treating the enzyme with increasing concentration of the inhibitors. These sensogram are showing that the Kd values were pretty much similar to that of observed into the fluorescence assays. Then we check the effect of these compounds, both UDSC1 and UDSC2, over the secondary structure of this enzyme. So we found that on treating the increasing concentration of enzyme from 1 micromolar to 100 micromolar, which is not very clear into the legend of this diagram, we found that there is insignificant effect over the secondary structure of this enzyme. We as such obtained two signature dips of alpha helical content in both of these studies. We found that the compounds are not able to curb to perturb the secondary structure of this enzyme, which means that if these inhibitors are given in vivo, then there are very less chances that they might be reacting with similar other FAD containing enzyme into the body. And we at this step both of these inhibitors are ready to be given in vivo, but before that we wanted to check the cytotoxic and hemolytic effects of these compounds. We did some ex vivo assay against HEK293 cells and isolated human RBCs, where we found that none of these compounds, even at greater range than their corresponding IC50 value, they were not able to cause any cytotoxic and any hemolytic effects. At this stage, UDC1 and UDSC2 are ready to be tested in vivo studies. Here I have shown the data of UDSC3 on the effect of UDSC3 on systolic blood pressure of spontaneously hypertensive rat in acute and chronic studies. In acute studies, we chose 25 milligram of the compound and 50 milligram of the compound. You can see here that at 25 milligram of the compound, UDSC3 is not able to lower down the systolic blood pressure even into first 3 hours of the treatment. And when we increase the dose of UDSC3 to 50 milligram of the compound, you can see here that this red line is still maintained. This is the systolic blood pressure even after 24 hours of the treatment of UDSC3. It was maintained to lower levels. And the same dose, the 50 milligram per kg of the compound, we use into the chronic study, where we gave this compound to SHRs for 14 days, and we found that these blue dots are showing that the blood pressure is significantly lowered, and the number of animals in each group was 6, and the vehicle was 10% DMSO, and the dose of enalapril was 10 milligram per kilogram of the body weight of the spontaneously hypertensive rats. So this is the echocardiograph of SHR halts after pre-treatment and post-treatment of UDSC3, and this is the electrocardiogram of rat, which is just for representation here of UDSC pre-treatment and post-treatment stages. On the basis of electrocardiogram and echocardiograms, we found the structural aspects of the SHR halts, like ejection fraction shortening, interventricular septal diameter for systole and interventricular septal diameter for diastole. We found that there is insignificant effect in the SHR halts even after the treatment of UDSC3 for 14 days in the chronic study. We also check other echocardiographical parameters like left ventricular internal diameter for systole, for diastole, left ventricular posterior wall thickness for systole and diastole. We found that there is negligible or insignificant effect on all these structural parameters of the SHR hearts after the chronic treatment of UDSC3. Then we move further to check the histopathological aspects rat hearts after the treatment of UDSC3. And this is the vehicle. This is enalapril treated SHR heart, and this is UDSC3 treated rat heart. You can find here that this is the fibrosis area, which is significantly decreased in presence of UDSC3 and in enalapril, which means that the compound are causing and decrease into the significant reduction into the fibrosis area after the treatment of UDSC3 in chronic study. We also check the morphological aspects of rat heart. This is the vehicle treated heart, and this is enalapril treated heart, and this is the UDSC3 treated heart. We found that if in UDSC3 as well as in enalapril, there is significant decrease into the heart size, and we can say that both of these compounds, especially UDSC3, is able to curb the hypertrophic parameter of the rat heart. Coming to the summary of the research work, we can say that cytochrome B5 reductase 3 enzyme was purified from recombinant sources to homogeneically, and UV visible spectroscopy demonstrated that the enzyme was found to be fully functional, and it was found to be a flavo enzyme with FAD specific shoulder peaks. And further UV visible spectroscopic analysis also showed that the enzyme activity has been significantly inhibited by the use of both UDSC1 and UDSC2, which are the potent inhibitors of this enzyme. And fluorescence analysis showed that dissociation constant was found to be in micromolar ranges, and it also provided the promising binding potential and stoichiometric ratios, which is number of binding site, which was found to be 1:1 ratio. And the effect of these inhibitors was further checked into the CD spectroscopy for the conformational changes of this enzyme. We found that the both of these compounds were not able to affect the secondary structure of this enzyme. And we also did ex vivo hemolytic assay and cytotoxic assays, where we found that these compounds were non-cytotoxic and non-hemolytic either. And heme reduction assay was also done, which demonstrated that UDSC2 was able to inhibit the enzyme activity, and it was able to stop the conversion of ferric hemoglobin to ferrous hemoglobin. And UDSC3 was able to curb the hypertension and systolic blood pressure rise into spontaneously hypertension rat in acute as well as in chronic study. I have done some crystallization experiments also, but I have not shown here because of the confidentiality of the results. These results are mentioned into the poster. And so the take-home message of this whole presentation is screening of the compound against this interesting enzyme gave two potential hits or inhibitors, namely UDSC1 and UDSC2, and they are ready to be tested for in vivo studies. And they also showed the significant inhibitory efficacy in micromolar ranges and the binding potential into micromolar ranges. And both of these compounds were able to uh, curb the uh, uh, curb the enzyme activity, and these were non-cytotoxic and non-hemolytic, and they have shown significant significant inhibition of the enzyme activity, and they are ready to be tested in vivo. And UDSC3 was able to curb the systolic blood pressure rise into SHRs. In last, I wish to acknowledge my supervisor, Dr. Suman Kundu, Dr. C.C. Kartha, and Dr. Ramachandran. Both of these are our collaborator into this project. My senior, Dr. Sanjay Kumar Day, and my friend and senior, Dr. Vikas Panchal. And both of these guys immensely helped me throughout this project. And of course, this guy, SHR, without which the work was not possible. And here is the bonus tip for you: to have a healthy heart, you should take medicine after sleeping or before you wake up. Thank you.